Do you stop and think about how the things that you buy get to the stores that you buy them from? Welcome to my new segment about trucking. Every Tuesday, we'll be talking about trucking from a unique perspective, from the office side. I'm not a driver, but I deal with drivers every single day. And I think I bring a unique perspective, both from interacting with drivers and dealing with the office side of things, that will help answer a lot of the questions that you have about how our goods get to the point of sale. So, welcome to Trucking Tuesday. Hi, I'm Jen. I've worked in the transportation industry on the office side for about 5 years now. The current carrier that I work for is a good mid-sized carrier who specializes in dry van and reefer. Reefer makes up about 12% of our business. The rest is dry van. We don't haul hazmat, but we do haul all kinds of dry goods, from automotive parts to food to industrial material, packaging material, and everything in between. We also haul for some of the main names of clothing, such as Gap, Ralph Lauren, and Foot Locker. We also haul for major manufacturing companies on the automotive side, and we also haul for major packaging. We also haul for places like Walmart and other major retailers like Costco, and a lot of small places in between. We're also involved in the CHEP Pallet program in several cities, including major cities such as St. Louis, where our company is based. So let's talk about trucking and my personal experience so you know where I'm coming from. I got into trucking about 5 years ago after spending 20 plus years of my life in retail. I was looking for something totally new and different, and trucking was something, honestly, I had no experience, no knowledge of, other than the fact that trucks brought stuff to the stores for us to sell. And trucking is a very unique business, and that there are tons and tons of moving pieces involved. No pun intended. You have the truck drivers themselves with their rules and regulations. You have the truck and trailer equipment to worry about. You have how the drivers know where to go. So, what systems or equipment that they're using in their trucks and in the offices to communicate with the drivers and tell them how to get to point A, point B, and how the pay is regulated. There's people that have to get those loads from different companies or different customers. There's such things as brokerage loads. There's things that as regular customers and one-time customers or sometimes customers. Then you have the pay to worry about, not only for the drivers, but the people in the offices, the customers, etc. So there's lots and lots and lots of different things going on all at once. And that's just the everyday thing. That doesn't include things as breakdowns, equipment failures, issues on the road, such as hours of service being put out of service, tickets, inspections, and any number of things that you might not stop and think about when you go to the store to purchase your goods. So let's talk about trucking and how much people genuinely know. Most people, if you talk to them, I don't think realize how much is involved in the trucking industry. I know I sure didn't when I walked in. I had no idea about hours of service. I had no idea how important those hours of service are and what it means to be held to a clock that never stops. All of us in life, no matter what industry you're in, face the pressure and the limitations of time. But as a driver, your clock controls your entire day. As soon as you start it, you can't stop it. And once it's gone, you don't get any of it back. So there's that concern. And if you're in the office like me, knowing how much time a driver has on that clock, knowing what the limitations of that clock are extremely important, because you can make or break a driver's day depending on how their clock is utilized. So I had to learn everything about that. And those laws in the United States and in other countries change. We recently, within the last 5 years of me being in the industry, have had a major update to hours of service, breaks, and split times. And we'll talk about those in another video. But these regulations change a lot. Other major things that have changed are about parking. ever since COVID, parking has become a major concern. Lots of rest areas were closed. Truck stops have started charging for premium parking and have very few free spots. We know that parking on the side of a road, whether you're in a commercial vehicle or a personal use vehicle, is dangerous. However, many drivers find that that is the only option they have when they're running low on time. We'll be talking about that too in upcoming videos. And what happens when you break down? What happens when the freight's low? What happens when someone else picks up your load? These are all things that I had never ever considered when I walked in to start working in the trucking industry. And there's so many more concerns or issues or problems that get raised on a regular basis. One thing I will say about this Trucking Tuesday is we won't be turning it into a political war. I know there's a lot of hot buttons in relationship to trucking, and I want to keep this channel as neutral as possible. Feel free to comment, share your opinions. I don't censor anyone who comments on my channel, but please be respectful. If you're a driver, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear about your experiences and how long you've been on the road, what challenges you faced, what things you enjoy, what things you don't, what things you wish would change. And if you're someone like me who works in the office, I'd love to hear from you too. So let me give you a basic overview of what my job is and then how I deal with trucking on a daily basis. I work in what's called after hours. So I do the job of everyone during the day. Do I do their whole job? No. But I have to sometimes book loads if someone loses a load. I sometimes have to assign loads and help people plan out their week with their loads. I sometimes help with breakdowns, truck and trailer, help with accidents, help with their HOS, their hours of service. So if something happened, they had a wrong status on their clock. We use electronic logs. So I help people with their logbooks. I help people find places if they get lost. And a lot of times if we have brokered loads, we're going into places or brand new customers and we're going into places that we've never been before. And sometimes they're not in familiar areas and areas that are surrounded by residential, which we can't go in as commercial trucks. So I sometimes have to help people with directions. I help people when they've been sitting at a customer too long. They're not getting loaded or loaded, so we have to apply for detention. If someone has a trailer that gets rejected because it's not considered food grade or it's not clean enough or it's the wrong size or it has the wrong size bumper. If a load's not going to be ready, we have to figure out something else to keep the driver moving. I also handle what we call check calls. So when a driver checks in or checks out of a place, updates trailers, because a lot of our drivers do what we call drop and hook, which means they're switching trailers when they go to pick up a load and when they deliver a load. So we have to make sure all those are updated. We use a system called DITAT in my office that's used both in the office and in the driver's truck. And that's what communicates their loads to them and allows them to communicate with us where they're up with their loads. It also has a message feature so that we can send the drivers messages and they can send us messages. And it handles pretty much all of the information that they need to know about their loads. We also use Samsara in the trucks and in the office, and that's what we use for our electronic logbooks. There's lots of programs out there to be used for both applications, both load information and hours of service. Those are just the two that we use at the current carrier that I'm at. So handling all those issues. When it comes to breakdowns, we have to figure out if they're roadside, if they are able to get to a shop, which shop we can use, set up payment, set up service, make sure that we're getting a fair deal, make sure that the drivers aren't waiting excessive amounts of time. Sometimes that's easier said than done. Other things that we handle at night, at my company, we have a couple of cars that we have at our HQ that we allow the drivers to check out so that they can go grocery shopping, they can run to go get something to eat, whatever they need to do on their downtime versus trying to do that in their truck. Because even if you don't have a trailer, if you're what's called bobtail, which means no trailer, it's still really difficult to park a commercial vehicle in a regular parking lot. So as a convenience for our drivers, we try to allow them to check out these two cars and run around the local area to get the things that they need. So we handle that when people need to turn in paperwork or need keys or need a new tablet or need to leave a message for their dispatcher, pick up a fuel card. We handle that at night as well. And we also handle anything in between. If drivers are just having a bad day and they need to talk it out with somebody or they're frustrated or sometimes they just need a friendly voice on the other end of the line because they've had a rough day. We do that too. So in After Hours, we're kind of your all around one stop shop for anything and everything that you can need. And I really enjoy that. I've been a driver manager, aka a dispatcher as well. And I had my own, if you're a driver manager, we like to say your own fleet of drivers. I have managed up to 50 drivers at one time before. And I would check in with those drivers at least twice a day with a phone call. I would plan their loads for them, plan their home time, check in with them with any problems that they had. The first carrier I worked at was really small, and we did have a safety person, but if they were busy, and it was something simple that wasn't an accident, if it was just logbook related, we would usually handle that ourselves. We didn't have a breakdown department, so if someone broke down, we would handle finding them a place to get service, helping them get roadside service if needed, taking care of the payment, etc., to make sure that those trucks were up, back, and running. And like I said, we plan every aspect basically of those drivers' lives while they're out on the road, because they would tell us, hey, I need to be home for this time or that time, or I've got this coming up. And the other thing is, everyone who drives has a different lifestyle. There are some people that are of one faith or another and need to be home for different religious reasons. There's people that need to be home for different family reasons. Maybe they like to be home for their birthday or their spouse's birthday. Maybe they want to be home for their kid's birthday or their kid's first day of school. One thing that people don't think about in the trucking industry is how much time truckers spend away from their family. And that's something I want to address on this Truckers Topic Tuesdays as well, is how much time drivers are away. Even local drivers or regional drivers who go home every night or every other night are still away from their family a good chunk of the day, much longer than most normal jobs. Doctors and nurses and some other long shift jobs may be the exception, but most people normally work an 8 or 9 hour shift. When you're a truck driver, you're working at least a 14-hour shift, and that doesn't include your commute to your truck if you're somebody who's regional or local. So these guys are gone a really long time. And when you're away from your family, especially if you're a parent, a mom, a dad, it's really hard to be away from your family. Or if you're someone who has maybe an older family member that you're worried about, it's hard to be away. And I don't think people realize how much time drivers lose being away from their families and the sacrifices that come along with that. So when you're managing drivers, when you're working with drivers and you're trying to help manage how their life is handled with their loads, getting them home for what's important is a huge part of that. And making sure that they're home on time is the big thing too. Because unfortunately in trucking, nothing is guaranteed. And so making sure that people get home when they really need to get home is very important. So that's kind of an overview of my job and what goes on the day to day. But some big things that are concerning in the trucking business right now would be freight. Yes, there's freight out there. There is freight out there for everyone to run. The problem is that the pay on a lot of loads is not what we're used to, and isn't always the best, especially when you're not working as an independent or an owner operator booking your own loads. If you're working for a company, there's a certain threshold that you have to meet in terms of what an individual load should pay, so that you can pay the drivers, you can pay the office staff, you can pay for repairs, you can pay for new trucks. So if thresholds like those aren't met, then the trucking company is obviously not going to be able to pay their bills, much less be at all profitable, which doesn't help anyone, because then wages can't get paid, trucks can't be maintained, trailers can't be maintained, new equipment can't be bought, things like that. So there's a lot to consider in how much an individual load is priced. And when the market is the way it is right now, for lots of reasons, it's really difficult. And unfortunately, that means that sometimes drivers that are used to running and will go from one load to the next immediately sometimes wind up sitting. And that can be really stressful for both the office staff and definitely for the driver, because like the privilege that some people have, for example, my paycheck is pretty much the same every 2 weeks because I'm a salaried employee. But drivers, for the most part, if they are over the road, get paid a percentage or get paid per mile. And when you're sitting, you're not making any money. So it's a huge concern to try to keep these trucks moving, because that's where their money's coming from. If you're sitting getting loaded, you might get paid detention, but you're not making the kind of money off detention or layover pay that you would make for actually moving the truck. And when freight becomes difficult to book or difficult to obtain because of how the market is, that's a huge concern. Other thing that's very concerning right now in trucking, and I touched on this at the beginning, is parking. Parking is really difficult. It's not like you can park a tractor trailer just anywhere. And some cities are more difficult than others to park in just because of how they're constructed, their rules and regulations, the number of truck stops that they have, etc. So a lot of drivers will try to park at a customer, a shipper, or a receiver, but sometimes that means sacrificing basic facilities. So you have to manage how you're going to go to the bathroom, what you're going to do about that. You have to manage when you're going to be able to get a shower in or do your laundry. But not only that, just finding a safe place to park and not on the side of the highway or not in a place that you could possibly get booted or get towed. Because a lot of truck stops have gone to paid parking where 80 to 90% of their spots are considered paid premium parking. And if you don't pay for those spots, you're probably not going to get a spot to park there because there's a lot of competition and those truck stops fill up fast. The night drivers have a hard time getting in to park at the end of their shift because there's people that haven't left the truck stops yet. Day drivers have a hard time parking because a lot of them start around the same time, so they need to shut down around the same time. Another big concern is, like I said, personal life. People talk about having a work-life balance. When you're in a truck the majority of your time, your work-life balance can be very different. So the mental health and the family health is a big concern with drivers. And that's something that I take a lot of interest in because I want people to be happy. People deserve a happy life, to be able to enjoy life. And when you're not around your friends and your family, that can be more difficult than you think. So what are we doing to take care of these guys? Retention. That's a huge issue in the trucking industry. Every trucking company I know that's out there, big or small, is hiring. There's a shortage of truck drivers like you would not believe. It's not an industry that people are excited to get into like they used to be. There used to be a lot of pride in being a truck driver. A lot of younger people don't want to do that job because they are going to be away from their home. They are going to be away from their family. It's not always the most stable of professions because the freight ebbs and flows just like the economy. So there's always a shortage of truck drivers. And from the truck driver's perspective, what is their company doing for them to make them want to stay? What is their company doing for them to make them happy and want to stay? So those are major issues. Other major issues are staffing in the offices. Just like every other industry out there, for the most part, staffing is hard. Finding good people who genuinely care and are willing to put the work in is hard. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot to think about. And there's a lot of things that can be frustrating and upsetting and difficult in the trucking industry. So, staffing in general, both on the truck side and in the office side, is difficult. And the other big thing is how the rest of the world treats truckers and those in the trucking industry. Because I think there's still a lot of stereotype about what a truck driver is. And even within the trucking industry itself, there's a lot of discussion about what kind of truck drivers there are. There's the steering wheel holder that doesn't care about their job and maybe wears flip flops when they're driving. There's people that are super professional, and then there's the old school truckers that will stop if somebody's broke down on the side of the road. And that's problematic in itself, A, because it's dangerous, and two, because your clock's always running. So what are the different types of truckers there are? What are the stereotypes? What are the stereotypes about people in transportation in general? So we'll talk about that too. But I just want to give an intro into what this is going to be, and I would love to hear feedback from those of you who are in the industry, who have questions about the industry. Feel free to reach out, either message me here or email me. My email is in my channel description, but it's fracturedchristian@gmail.com. And those of you out there who are in the business, who also have a strong Christian faith, I would love to hear if your faith plays a role in this industry. I know for some people it definitely does. I pray for all my truckers every day. I pray for their safety. I pray for the industry as a whole, that it will get better and that people will be respectful of one another in this industry, respectful of each other out on the road, and that everybody can kind of get together and make things work. So I'd love to hear about that too. So please be respectful. Like I said, I'm not here to start any wars or any political discussions. I just want to talk about trucking in a kind of a neutral way, but from the office perspective. And like I said, we'll get the opinion of some truckers as well. Maybe I'll even try to get one of them to come on camera with me. I don't know if I will, but I'll see what I can do. So that is an intro to Trucking Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining me. Be safe on the road, and I will talk to you guys again very, very soon.